Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. I'm speaking to you on behalf of Brit-Am Hebrew Nations. Our organization finds the lost 10 tribes to be amongst the Western nations. And we have proven it. We have put out about 9 books and numerous articles and magazines and YouTube clips and whatever was possible concerning this, because we have a great amount of knowledge, a great amount of valuable information on this subject, and we have shown who the lost 10 tribes are, and we have shown them to be amongst Western nations. One of our major books, it was the tribes. This was actually our first book. It's now gone through 4 editions. Each edition is worth having. The 4th edition is the latest, and it is now available from us. This book, The Tribes, shows who the lost 10 tribes are. Our present talk is partly based on this work, but more so it is based on or reflecting the opinions of Rabbi Nathan, as we would say, Nathan Sternhartz of Bratslav. Lived in 1780 to 1844. He was the major student, one should say, Talmud disciple, follower of Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, who was very well known in Jewish sources and also international sources. And the person who actually gave us in written form, in coherent form, the teachings of Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav was Rabbi Nathan. So Rabbi Nathan, in one of his writings, he discusses the 12 tribes of Israel, and he shows how each one of these tribes had certain qualities, and we have this list, and we took this list and we compared with the qualities that he gave with our findings as our findings were given in this book, The Tribes, and elsewhere. Now we should emphasize from the very beginning that our identifications of the tribes is based upon biblical information, rabbinical commentaries, archaeological evidence, linguistic sources, and mythology, and numerous other sources. We bring everything together and show that how all the evidence points in certain directions, enables us to identify specific historical entities with definite Israelite tribes. And Rabbi Nathan, he came along and he has given a few points on each individual tribe. We wrote these points down in summarized form, and we showed how they correspond to some degree with our findings. But we repeat, our findings are based upon our own researches, and Rabbi Nathan, the observations of Rabbi Nathan are of interest, and at all events we'll get into what we are here for, and this talk may well be elucidating. It should be educational and interesting and valuable, and so it's worth hearing. So the 12 tribes, 12 blessings, or actually the 19 or 18, depends how you count them, blessings in the prayer that the Jews pray 3 times a week on weekdays, and the 12 intermediate blessings are those which are of the weekday, and each blessing, Rabbi Nathan takes each one of these blessings and shows how it relates to a specific tribe. And he says that the 12 middle blessings parallel the 12 tribes of Israel. And these 12 tribes of Israel with the descendants of Jacob. Jacob was also known as Israel. And he says that the main aim of prayer should be to unite the individual with the rest of Israel before the Almighty. So we should all be aware of our Hebrew ancestry, learn the Bible and act well. You should know who you are, you should know whom you descend from, and you should internalize this information and make yourselves aware of it and make it part of your life, part of your living. And this is what we have come to do. This is what our organization does. It gives you this knowledge. It proves it, discusses it, and it goes over it, and it is worth knowing. The first born of the Israelite tribes was Reuben. So Rabbi Nathan, he remembers that how Reuben was born, and that they saw that she was not as favored as Rachel was. Jacob had married both Leah and Rachel, the 2 sisters. He married them both, and at first he favored Rachel more than Leah, and so God, as if to say, had pity on Leah, and he gave her the virtue, the merit of giving birth to the firstborn son, who was known as Reuben. And when Reuben was born, she said, look, a son. And she uses the word son, and this word son in Hebrew, as Rabbi Nathan points out, can also mean look, see, regard, internalize. It can be connected with knowledge, have to possess awareness. Reuben is the name of Reuben, seer son, and this name Ribuari or Reuben was also a name associated with peoples who settled in France and the area of what is now France, and so we identify Reuben with people in France. And Rabbi Nathan says that this Reuben was associated with knowledge, the possession of knowledge and awareness. And so amongst the French intellectuals, they have awareness, they see things, they have a ranking in the intellectual world for their recipients. And in addition to that, even the French rank and file, the ordinary Frenchman, has a certain empathy for others, which he is known for, and he is sympathy for aspects of the human nature, a genuine sympathy for other people. He looks inside them as if to say he sees who they are and makes allowance for it. So this is Reuben. This is how we find Reuben reflected in the observations of Rabbi Nathan. Another one is Simeon. Another son was Simeon. Simeon, according to Rabbi Nathan, is associated with the blessing of repentance. In Hebrew, repentance is tshuva, return. And even when Simeon was born, his mother said that God has heard my affliction, and God has heard that I was disliked, and therefore she called his name Shimeon. The name Shimeon contains its elements: Shema, hear, and on, affliction or dislike. And these words, and this comes to tell us that Shimeon was a person who had this element within him of being disliked, of doing dislikable things, but also calling unto God. Shimeon had the element of potentially becoming a black sheep, but also of repenting. So this is what Rabbi Nathan points out. Shimeon, the tribe of Simeon, was to be absorbed partially by Judah, but we have also found elements from Shimeon elsewhere, from Simeon elsewhere. Simeon was also to be found amongst the Irish and amongst the Welsh, and there too there's a tendency amongst these peoples, especially the Irish, to drink too much and to act with profligacy, to do things that they regret, and to regret them. They actually regret them whilst they are doing them. And so they have the potential, these elements of Simeon are present. Levi, then the third son was Levi. Levi, according to Rabbi Nathan, the tribe of Levi is associated with the blessing of asking for forgiveness. And from Levi emerged the priests and the Kohanim, the priests and the Levites who worked in the temple. And their job was to work towards atoning for the sins of Israel and inducing the other Israelites to repent of their sins. We find Levi with groups who were scattered amongst all of the tribes. They're similar to Simeon, but a good portion of Levi, according to the book of Chronicles, was eventually to be found amongst Judah after the lost 10 tribes. Originally there were 12 tribes of Israel. There's 12 tribes split into two different sections. And the northern section was that of the 10 tribes. The 10 tribes was the majority of the Hebrew nation. They were taken into exile by the Assyrians and they lost consciousness of their ancestry. Before they were taken into exile, their first King Jeroboam set up 2 golden calves, one in Bethel and the other one in Dan. And he told the Israelites to worship these calves instead of going up into Jerusalem. And he also appointed priests for this new cult of his. And so the Levites, most of the Levites, or the Bible, actually all the Levites according to the Bible, moved to the south, moved to Judah. But in other ways there were Levites who are to be found amongst the lost tribes, but the majority of them apparently were to be amongst Judah. And today amongst the Jews, Judah is the present day Jewish people, And amongst the Jews we find people who learn full time, and they atone for the rest of Israel and bring merit on the rest of Israel. And they learn full time. They learn on the whole, speak on the average, with a surprising intensity and constancy and self-sacrifice and dedication. So this fits the task of Levi. And after that we have Judah. Judah, according to Rabbi Nathan, is associated with the blessing of which when God is asked to look upon our oppression, look upon those who are oppressing us, and then calling for the Redeemer of Israel to be realized, to be known. And this is associated with the Messiah, and the future Messiah will come from Judah. According to the Bible, the future Messiah will come from Judah, and Judah is to be associated with the present-day Jews. We also have Issachar, the tribe of Issachar. Issachar, according to Rabbi Nathan, is associated with the blessing, asking for healing of diseases and sicknesses, also of physical and psychological afflictions. And with healing, we ask God to heal us and to heal those whom we are whom we hold dear, or those for whom we are praying. And this blessing is associated with Issachar. We have identified the Issachar with both the Swiss and the Finnish peoples. The Swiss and the Finns have had research achievements, and Switzerland is an international centre for research, and not only for research, also for medical achievements in the medical field, especially in certain fields such as fertility or rejuvenation, making older people young. And different specialised aspects of medical science are to be found amongst the Swiss, are to be found in Switzerland. People want certain treatment and have money and the will, go to Switzerland for these treatments, and Switzerland is known for this. The other one is Zebulun, another tribe, Zebulun. Zebulun, according to Rabbi Nassan, and incidentally, Nassan is also in the Ashkenazic Yiddish or Ashkenazic Hebrew, pronounced as Nosson. Rabbi Nosson, he was the primary disciple of Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. So Rabbi Nathan, in his article, he associates Zebulun, the tribe of Zebulun, with the blessing to bless this year, asking for prosperity, the blessing on our works. He says that Zebulun was a merchant, and he profited by his trading with other nations and so on, and he supported his brother Issachar. So we have identified Zebulun with the people of Holland, with the Dutch. There was actually a nation called Zebulon Goy in northern Netherlands, according to the map of Ptolemy. Zebulon Goy means the people Goy, the people of Zebulon. Also, most of the Dutch people live on the shores of the sea. 2/3 of them, 1/3 of them live below sea level. Another third of them need protection of dikes and waterworks against periodic flooding and other troubles due to the low elevation of the land. The land is reclaimed from the sea. So literally speaking, 2/3 of the Dutch people live on the shores of the sea. And this one was the blessing that Jacob gave to Zebulun, that he would live on the shores of the sea. And in addition, we have other proofs showing that Zebulun did settle in that region of the Netherlands. And throughout its history, Holland was always a trading nation. It had a major navy, a merchant navy in the past. And even now, its ports, especially the port of Rotterdam, is a major port. Was probably the largest port in the world, or the second largest, third largest. Was always up there. And now it is the port, the entrance for Europe, for all goods going in and out of Europe, go through ports, or mainly, or a good portion, a very large percentage of them, go through Rotterdam or through other ports in the Netherlands. We also have Dan, the tribe of Dan, and the Dan, according to Rabbi Nathan, is associated with the blessing of blow with the great shofar, which is calling on God to hasten our redemption, and also predicting the ingathering of the 10 tribes and the rest of the exiles of Judah. And this is the blessing associated with Dan. that Dan would gather up all those who were straying behind and would do his what had to be done, and Dan would be in the rear guard against the enemies of Israel. And we identified Dan with Denmark, although there were also elements in Ireland and Britain and elsewhere. In the Second World War, the Danish underground asked the Jews who were living in Denmark not to try to escape. They would take responsibility for them, and they did so. They helped the Jews escape. They got all the Jews together and put them in ships. They organised transport by sea, and they rowed them over, or sailed them over to Sweden, and they asked the Swedish government to take care of these Jewish citizens of theirs as wards of the Danish government for the duration of the war, and Sweden agreed to do so. Another point, we have another blessing which is against the enemies of the Jewish people, and Rabbi Nathan says this is associated with Amalek. Amalek was the arch enemy of Israel. Amalek was a descendant of Esau, in Hebrew Esau. Esau is also known as Edom. Edom is found throughout many nations, especially in Europe, especially amongst Germans and other peoples. And according to Rabbi Nathan, the Amalek is also associated with sexual immorality, promiscuity, and this causes in Israelites are promiscuous, weaken the covenant, their connection with God Almighty. And therefore we pray that God Almighty will have mercy upon us and then gather us and keep us from falling down in this field. And we should be aware of it. And we, as we said, Amalek is to be identified with those who hate the Jewish people, and also with elements in Europe and elsewhere. And we, on the other hand, Rabbi Nathan says that Dan, the blessing against Amalek comes one after the blessing to Dan, because Dan especially was susceptible to the adverse influences, the negative influences from Amalek. And so, as we have identified Dan with Denmark, we find adverse influences upon the Danish people historically. In recent times, Denmark was the forerunner, the pioneer of sexual promiscuity in Europe. Nowadays, all of Europe is promiscuous, and to some degree it was, but it has become worse, steadily and consistently worse from year to year. And Denmark was one of the initial causes of this. And according to a person to whom I spoke, someone from Norway, she told me that in her view the degeneration of Denmark was due to their contiguency, they're being close to the Germanic people and adopting Germanic negative atheistic outlooks on existence. After that we have Naphtali, the blessing associated with Naphtali. Naphtali, according to Rabbi Nathan, has the blessing when we ask for God Almighty to return our judges to us, that we may be able to rule over ourselves, and that also we may judge ourselves according to the Torah. And Naphtali is a hind let loose, is like a female deer, according to the blessing given unto him, Genesis 49:21. And also someone gives forth goodly words, who speaks good things. We identify Naphtali with Norway, along with some of the Irish. Naphtali was also, according to Rabbi Nathan, linked to royalty, and we have the Norwegians are a monarchy. The Norwegian monarchy does have status of its own amongst in Europe. As a monarchy, has this aspect of royalty with it, and but they're not known as great orators, on the contrary. But the Irish, amongst whom too we find some of Naphtali are, the Irish are well known for their gift of speech and their literature. And the Irish writers, both Catholic and Protestant, historically contributed more to the British literature than any other group. In fact, they per head of population, great writers in the classical sense, more have come from amongst the Irish, both the northern and southern, both Catholic and Protestant. If you count them as one people, they have given more to the world in the field of literature, in the classical sense, than any other people. And one of the greatest works of Irish literature is said to be Ulysses by James Joyce in 1922. Ulysses by James Joyce. I read a few chapters of it. I might get around to reading the rest of it. It looks good, interesting, but it was written in the old days when people wrote a lot and had time to read, or I don't know. But it seems possibly it's worth reading. It is considered, at all events, it is considered one of the greatest books ever produced. And the hero of this book is called Leopold Bloom, and he is a Jew, or a person of Jewish descent living in Dublin. So it's interesting that the hero of this work was depicted as a Jew, as someone of Jewish origin. And the great literature, in a sense, represents or gives an expression to the inner soul of a nation. So it is to say the Irish felt a need for the expression of themselves should have a Jewish aspect to it, which is interesting. And then we have Joseph, the blessing to Joseph. Joseph is considered the righteous ones. Joseph parallels Joseph, the righteous ones. We identify Joseph with English-speaking peoples, that it includes the USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. It also includes the people of Ireland, of Ulster, of Scotland, of Wales, of England. These are the English-speaking peoples, especially the British and their descendants. And a lot of things, the negative things could be said about these people, and they would be correct. There's a lot of criticism that can justifiably be made against these people. They're not so righteous as they would like to be, or as they would like others to think themselves to be. They have done a lot of harm in the world, but on the other hand, they've also done a lot of good, possibly more good than any other people, and they do have a sense of justice, of doing what is right. Even British humour and American humour, which is similar to it, but not exactly the same. British humour, if you look at it, if you consider it, what they always seem to presuppose a principle of justice. Things should go in a certain way, and when they do not go in a certain way, then ridiculous things happen, or something is to be laughed at because it is not going according to the preconceived standards or order of things as that they should go in. In other words, behind everything there's always some type of righteousness, of some type of straight line according to which ideally everything should be judged by. And when it is not, it is sometimes it gives humour because you laugh at it, or you condemn it depending on how it is depicted. But this is a principle that, as may be seen in their fiction, in their comedy shows, in their entertainment, and we are all used to this. We take this as granted, as something that is obvious. Therefore, we are hardly even conscious of it. But only when you look at the similar productions, or productions on similar themes produced by other peoples, and you see that this element is not always there. It is not necessarily there. It's not taken for granted as self-evident as it is amongst the British and those descend from the British. So the British do have this element of righteousness. We also have Benjamin. Benjamin, as according to Rabbi Nathan, it was parallels Benjamin. Benjamin is connected with Jerusalem, the prayer to Jerusalem. And we identify Benjamin with part of Judah. When the lost tribes separated themselves from Judah, Benjamin remained with Judah. Many of the Jews are descended from Benjamin. So, and the Jewish people now have, to a large measure, returned to the land of Israel. They are rebuilding the state of Israel. They are attempting to rebuild Jerusalem. They should be encouraged to do so. We all need them to do this, so they should be encouraged and helped when it is possible, and they should be supported in this endeavour of theirs. And nowadays, they have in the West Bank, the so-called West Bank of Judah and Samaria, have more than 500,000 Jews and 1,500,000 Arabs. In other words, 1/3 of them are Jews and 1/3 of them is 1/4 of them are Jews and 3/4 are Arabs. Even though the official figures give a greater number for the Arabs, these figures are incorrect or they are deliberately exaggerated. At all events, the Jews are a significant proportion of the people dwelling in this land. All of the land belongs to them. They should be encouraged to live there and to develop it. And the Arabs should be encouraged to emigrate, and they should be enabled to do so. This is important and is feasible. It can be done. It could be done. In the same way as enemies of the Jews, including Obama, including people in the American administration, want to get the Jews out of Judah and Samaria, want to encourage or force or pressure the Israelite government to give up on these areas and to move their populations out of them, as they did in Gush Katif, as they did recently, a few years ago, in the area, the settlements around Gaza. They took the Jewish people, they forced their own populations to move out of the area, and that was okay, no one said anything. So in the same way as it's okay for the Jews to be moved out of their homelands and pushed to some other region, why can't we do the same to the Arabs? What makes the Arabs better than the Jews in this regard? And if the Arabs don't deserve to be where they are, or they're causing trouble where they are, and they could be better accommodated for the good of everyone somewhere else, so what is wrong with that? Why have this double standard, this hypocrisy? The Jews deserve fair play, and according to the Bible, the land of Israel belongs to them, and they have a commandment and obligation to go back to the land and resettle it. And we should help them. Anyone who helps them should realize that he was doing the will of God Almighty, because this is what God wants. The tribe of Gad, according to Rabbi Nathan, is associated with a blessing for the flourishing of David, for the return of David, for the kingdom of David to reveal itself in the Messianic era. And he also quotes from the book of Malachi, Malachi 4:5, "Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord." And 4:6, Malachi 4:6, "And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse." So before the initial revelation, the final redemption, Elijah will come, and Elijah is a spiritual phenomenon. According to different commentators, Elijah at all events is associated with the return of the fathers to their children, the children to their fathers. And one aspect of this is realizing that the Israelites should realize who their forefathers were. The lost 10 tribes should be told and should be informed who their ancestors were. They should be told who their ancestors were. They should be told that they are descended from Israelite nations. The proof should be presented before them. More research on this subject should be encouraged, because you need research. Believe me, you need more and more research just to get the message through. And organisations such as our own should be encouraged to do what they can, because we are doing what we can and we need help to continue to do it. And this is the message, and it is very important, because Malachi says, if you don't, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. In other words, we may not have much time left, and we have a chance to do something now. Let's do it whilst we can. And this is associated with Gad. We identify Gad with Sweden. The people of Sweden, they had good and bad points. They had some certain stages in their history. They were a great nation, but there is also a feeling that they never actually fulfilled their potential. Perhaps in the future they will do so, and they will contribute something towards this final redemption that we need. We all need. The world needs. And we need to work at it and do something along those lines. The tribe of Asher, according to Rabbi Nathan, is connected with the blessing, asking God Almighty to hear our prayer. It parallels Asher, because Leah, when she gave birth to Asher, she said that Leah said for the daughters, and Leah said, "Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed," and she called his name Asher. The name Asher in Hebrew can suggest affirmation. Ashur, to Ashur, even the English word Ashur is derived from the same word Ashur. Asher connotes blessing and happiness. And if Asher said that Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his brethren, let him dip his foot in oil. Asher is also associated with happiness, as we said, with richness, with oil, perhaps connoting petroleum resources. And also in rabbinical tradition with beautiful women who are both beautiful inside and outside. Have shown that Asher gave rise to different groups who would be found in Scandinavia, also in Scotland and in Ireland. It's interesting to note that in both Scotland and Scandinavia, especially Norway, have been found to be rich in petroleum resources. And we have quite amount of evidence concerning the identification of Asher with these peoples. So this is what Rabbi Nathan said. These are the points that Rabbi Nathan said as they relate to our own findings, as shown in our book The Tribes. The book The Tribes has numerous other sources. The Tribes more links. This book The Tribes links individual Israelite tribes to specific Israelite nations according to blessings found in the Bible, as confirmed by rabbinical commentaries, also as shown through mythology and archaeology and related historical sources. And this information is necessary for us to know who we are, what we are, and what God Almighty requires us to do. May the God of Israel bless all of you. Thank you.